All right, folks, I'm going to do these relatively quickly because you've kind of been inundated with the Holocaust over your time in school. It's a very hot topic. It's a great topic to talk about because it's such a terrible topic. But understanding the nature of what happens in World War II, where the importance of the Holocaust is, because really when you look at it early on, a lot of people turned a blind eye to what was going on during the Holocaust, but really changed the tide of the mentality, especially from the American point of view, when we get closer to the victory in Europe or moving into Europe, especially now knowing what had happened during the Holocaust and how important it was to stop this from actually happening again. So when we look at the Holocaust, we got to look at a couple different incidents or instances that are going on during this time period. In 1935, Hitler and the Nazis are going to enact what are called the Nuremberg Laws. Essentially, these are laws that are applying rights and citizenship of the Jews in Germany, essentially taking away their ability to be citizens of the Reich. And once they lose their citizenship, their rights are minimized as well. These are marriage rights, these are birth rights, these are workplace rights, these are simple political rights, but their rights are gone, okay? And this is in 35, and really it's Hitler showing himself that he's going to put the clamps down upon the German Jewish people and really single them out as his scapegoat as we begin to move forward into the rest of the Holocaust. So this is really the first step, and it determined who was a German, who was a Jew, what level of Mischling, which is a mixed race or a mixed-blooded person, were, whether it be a second degree or a first degree, based on the number of grandparents. Of course, in Germany, many names, especially those of the Old Testament, were taken out, where people couldn't have, when they had their children, couldn't name their children these names. So definitely a lot of attacks on the Jewish religion. And really, looking at don't mix the blood, no mixing the blood. Well, I mean, that's not really what that's about. If you know anything about biology, that's not where we're going with this. So, really, it's using the Jews as their scapegoat to move forward. And a good example of this, where the fear is really struck down in the hearts of the Jews, not that the Nuremberg Laws didn't do that, but as through Kristallnacht, the idea of the night of broken glass. All right, and that's what Kristallnacht means. Kristall, the word crystal, means glass, and Nacht means night. This happens on November 9th, 1938. And here, all across Germany, is an extremely systematic, organized attack on Jewish homes and Jewish businesses. You can see the picture here of the front of a German store, or Jewish storefront that was attacked and destroyed. We can notice the cross hanging here in the window, the swastika predominantly displayed back in this area. People walking by to see what damage had been created, what damage had been done. Even the Jewish homes were attacked, and even in small towns where normally Jewish people and German people interacted very, very comfortably, they were still attacked. And it was really meant to strike fear in the hearts of the Jewish people during this time period. All right, the Jews trying to leave Germany. Once the fear is really installed, it's the idea they're trying to get out. And they want to go to other countries where they feel like they're safe, where possibly other Jewish people are, places like England or France, the United States. And a lot of these countries are going to shut their doors. There's a story of a North Carolina senator who writes a bill that basically says that no Jewish people can enter the United States under the age of 18, or that are over the age of 18. And those that are under the age of 18 can only enter with their parents. And it's really kind of like a contradiction that how are you going to be a young child and not have your parents? It's just not going to work. They're not going to let anybody in. There's other terrible stories of countries getting together to help fix the Jewish issue, fix the Jewish problem, but then again, not accepting Jewish people themselves, okay? And the USA was a big culprit of it very early on, and it kind of mirrors a lot of what's going on today with the Syrian refugees, that nobody wants to take in either. So, it's going to come to a consensus, but I think once the Americans start to see how bad the Holocaust was going on and what they knew about the concentration camps, then they started to kind of loosen up their ideas and start accepting Jewish people into their country. A lot of Jews are going to flee to South America. A lot of them are going to go back to Israel, which will lead to other situations really down the road. Okay. The fourth one, the Jewish ghettos. The movement of Jewish people out of their homes into ghetto sections of the city, essentially walled off, barbed wire sections of the city, where if you take 30 or 40,000 Jewish people and you stick them in to an area of the city that should only hold 5,000 people, then what Hitler wants to happen is they're going to be starved out. There's not enough resources there for them to survive, so if he starves them out, they're going to die that way, or they're going to die of disease, since the heavy population is on top of one another, not living a clean life because because of where they're living at this point in the ghetto, Hitler really hoped, but it kind of backfires on him because many Jewish people made the decision that they were willing to die fast as opposed to dying slow of death or disease because there was really nothing to live for at this point. For that point, the Jewish Holocaust survivor that I heard speak talked about how he would steal food, and of course, if you got caught stealing food, you were going to be hung, and he was willing to take that risk because if he was going to die, which was kind of the guarantee for most people, then he'd rather do it quickly, and even though it might be painful, it'll be over. And a lot of times when they did hang people, the ones who survived were jealous that they didn't have to go through this pain and suffering anymore. So the Jewish ghettos were kind of the first step in moving towards the final solution, moving towards the concentration camps that you're going to find in Eastern Germany and, of course, Eastern Europe that are there today, that are still remnants are there today. Here's a picture of soldiers standing outside the Jewish ghetto section. You can see the word verboten here, forbidden. This was only for Jewish people to go into, and it was a really crummy section of the city, on purpose, of course, to really try to starve them out, to kill them out. So, it's moving closer to our idea of final solution, the racial cleansing of all those people who are considered subhuman. Jewish people, handicapped both mentally and physically, homosexual, gypsies, to some degree, Eastern Orthodox, if they got captured. Anybody that's tied to communism would have been considered subhuman. All right, these people were cleansed. They were cleansed. They were essentially either burned or gassed or shot or hung, okay? But the whole idea was systematically getting rid of them. Okay, this is a genocide, of course. And one thing you have to know about the Germans is they were very organized. They knew exactly who they were killing and when they were killing them and where they were killing them at. Okay, and this happens, of course, in the concentration camps. They are slave labor. They're usually centered near a factory of some sort. Again, the Holocaust survivor I heard, who spent time in 2 concentration camps. One, he spent time in a food factory, which of course kept him alive. The other time, because of his intelligence and his skill, was able to be at a concentration camp near a naval base where he was working on U-boats, and successfully was able to keep those U-boats in port. He was forced to work on one section of the U-boat to try to get it back out to war, but what he realized is that the German Nazi soldiers could not come into the U-boat with him to watch his work, so what he would do is fix the one part that he had to fix and break another part to keep that ship at port for longer so it couldn't go off to war. All right, and here are a few pictures, and I'm sure you've seen pictures before of the Holocaust, and you can see the emaciation of the people. I mean, you're looking at men here who are probably in their 20s and 30s, and they look like they're in their 50s and 60s and 70s because they're so emaciated. The body has been beaten up so much. A lot of Jews, unfortunately, are going to die when they are liberated by the Americans. Again, all these pictures are from the Americans. When the Soviets liberated, they did not take pictures. They just got people out and tried to chase the Nazis. Here, the Americans are actually making sure that the world sees what's going on. But a lot of them died shortly after. They either overate and died, or they got sick from a disease that they were susceptible to, and of course they died there. All right, so these concentration camps are extermination camps, and the biggest way he's going to do it is through gas chambers, taking large groups of people, bringing them into a room, closing the door, gassing them, and of course killing them, and then burning their ashes down to ashes to get rid of them. And of course the deadliest of all the camps is Auschwitz. All right, Auschwitz is known for being the most deadliest, the highest number of people who died during this time. And of course you can see women here that are being liberated by the Americans. You can see how skinny and emaciated they are as well. The numbers of bodies and numbers of information they found about who died during these concentration camps is astounding. That's why there's a belief, of course, according to what the Americans found, that only 6 million Jews would actually perish. But the one thing we have to remember is that the Americans only liberated half of the Jews. The Soviets liberated the other half. So there's an assumption it's really 12 million people that did perish during the Holocaust time. The reason we can't really pinpoint that is because, well, the Soviets took all the information and put it behind the Iron Curtain during the Cold War, and we had no real standing on where these people were. It's an awful part of history, and the whole goal was to not let this happen again. Of course, during this time period from about 1935 to 1975, it's the 12 million Jews through Hitler. It's the 20 million million people through Stalin. It's the 60 million people under Mao Zedong. 92 million people are going to perish in that 40-year time period because of totalitarian dictatorships. And the Holocaust, a lot of these Jewish survivors came to the United States, have been telling their story. We had the Holocaust Museum. It's really something that's intriguing to know, of course, looking back at how terrible the history was.